Hey guys, in this video I want to show you the easiest way of how to do color correction. You don't have to be advanced in any of these things, just have to have some editing software. First of all, you can use any software you want because I just want to provide the principles. Second thing, we're gonna look at Lumetri Scopes and how to use them. And the third thing, doesn't matter which kind of camera you use, it can be Sony, Canon, it can be with picture profiles like S-Log, HLG, or without the profiles like for Sony a6000. Doesn't matter, this is more about the principles. I'll try to explain that in 3 minutes or less, so let's get that timer ready. Okay, so first of all, I'm gonna be using Premiere Pro in this example, and I have been not using S-Log on purpose because for S-Log that you need a little bit more of editing, more of color correction. So I'm not going to be using that to simplify because this is for beginners, and even if your camera supports the S-Log and all those things, my suggestion is to use HLG if your camera supports. If it doesn't, just doesn't use picture profiles at all, you will still be good to go. There is a huge difference between color correction and color grading. Color correction is where you make the footage usable for color grading. That's like the first step of doing the color correction. Color correction is where you fix your highlights, the shadows, the blacks, and all the things. You make sure that the temperature is correct, that the image is not overexposed or underexposed, and then you can apply color grading. I personally don't do color grading at all. I try to keep all my videos as true to the nature, true to life as possible. So I'm just gonna use color correction, and I suggest you as a beginner to do the same. Don't go in color grading because that's gonna take a lot of time and practice. So in this situation, I'm going to be using Adobe Premiere Pro. If you're using the same, go to the color and you should see all the things that I see. If you don't, go under the window. Make sure that Lumetri Scopes is enabled and Lumetri Color is enabled as well. And I try to keep this program monitor on here. Actually, I would be typically using 2 or 3 screens. On one I would have the Lumetri Scopes, and the other one I would have the program monitor, and on the third one I would usually have these Lumetri Colors. Using laptop now for this purpose, so a tight space, but bear with me. First of all, for color correction, you basically need only this tab, basic correction. The rest of them, creative, curves, blah blah blah, that's more for color grading, and we're not gonna touch upon that since that's not a beginner's topic. So first of all, you can adjust the temperature of the image. If you go up and down, you see if it works how you want it, and also you can adjust the tint. So before I try to explain you the Lumetri Scopes, I want you to know one thing, and here's the image. It's called Ansel Adam Zone System. Basically, this system that shows you the amount of light in the image, because how do you know if your monitor is not too bright or too dark? So because of that, you might use the Ansel Adam Zone System, for example, where the 0 is pure blacks and 10 is pure whites. In our case, in Lumetri Scope, we have, instead of 0 to 10, we have 0 to 100. So for example, here, when it touches 100, that means that is something pure white, and the black is pure black, right? If you also look up other of his tables, you'll find that, for example, human skin is supposed to be somewhere around 60 and 70. So this is how you can actually correctly edit the image so it's not too bright and too dark, so you don't have to rely on your monitor. So what I want to do with this image, because I know, for example, that part of my jacket and my hat is completely black, so what I want to do is I want these blacks in the Lumetri Scope to touch the bottom. So I do exactly that. I start to pull them down. As soon as they barely touch the 0, that means it has reached the limit, and I don't want to go too dark because otherwise I'm going to be losing all the details. So here, for example, I also noticed that the sun is shining on the wall, and the wall was supposed to be white. That means I can bring those whites up to 100, and it actually, they are already touching here these points, so that means that my color correction is great there as well. Another thing that I can do, I can add a little bit of contrast, and then you can see it kind of pushes all of the highlights and shadows up and down. And I can play with the highlights. If I feel like my face here is a little bit too bright, and how do I tell that? I can tell that by looking here. I can see that my face goes into 90s and 80s, and I would like to have it somewhere in the 70s. So basically, you can see this image on the left side is the respondence of this. For example, this part in the Lumetri scope is literally this column. So this window is a little bit darker, and that's here. My hand, my elbow here is this part. So what I would do, I would probably bring down the highlights. So in this part is my face, somewhere between the column and the window. So here's my face, and I want it to be a little bit maybe darker, somewhere about below 80. That looks quite alright. Maybe the shadow is a little bit darker, and that's my image. If I go turn it on and off, I can see that it looks much better, and if I want, I can add some contrast because I look like a bit pale, but that's because I haven't been in the sun for too long. And you have that, all of the things that we just discussed here on the right side, they are added here on the left side as well. And there's another way of doing this. You can actually also simply add a new adjustment layer, and you can add it on top of the image. So instead of having all of these adjustments on the clip itself, you can actually add it to adjustment layer, and then you can add that adjustment layer over all the clips and edit in that way. That is the most basic color correction there is. Again, this is not color grading, this is only color correction, where we are trying to figure out if there are not elements that are too overexposed and things are not going out of order. And please use Lumetri scopes, because you cannot rely on your monitor. You would have to buy thousands and thousands of worth of monitor in order to understand if it's not lying. And also, don't use your monitor, if you have really bright monitor, don't use it to the absolute brightest, because then you will simply, your image will look too bright and you will decrease it, and normal people watch on their devices not at the full brightness, and then for them it will seem that it's too dark. So use the Adam Ansel's table to know where these things are and to know how to read the Lumetri scope, because it's actually very easy once you get used to it. It just takes a little bit of practice, and yes, you have to go clip by clip. You can also go adjustment layer, pull it all the way, and you'll be good to go. Yeah, that was a brief explanation of color correction in less than 3 minutes. As promised, totally nailed it. I hope you enjoyed the video. Drop a comment down below. How's your day going so far, and if you find this useful, and I'll see you in the next video very soon. Tom Sirius here. Cheers, guys.